My name appears discreetly on the ID plate above my desk. Emily Parker, financial analyst. Just another ordinary nameplate, like many others on the 22nd floor of Global Investments and Ventures. What no one knows is that my last name should be on top of the building. I adjust my modest framed glasses and continue typing reports while watching Amanda Thompson walking down the hallway, her high heels echoing on the marble floor. Emily, those Q3 numbers should have been on my desk yesterday. Amanda stops next to my desk, leaning over with perfectly manicured nails. Her expensive perfume invades my space. And please, try to look more presentable tomorrow. We have investors visiting and we don't want them to think we pay so poorly. She looks at my sale blouse as if it were a rag. Some colleagues snicker quietly. I take a deep breath and smile as I promise to deliver the report within an hour. As she walks away, my eyes meet those of James Wilson, my husband and the company's CEO, watching the scene from his glass-walled office. He quickly looks away, pretending he didn't see anything. At night during dinner at our apartment, James casually mentions a new corporate acquisition. I ask strategic questions, soaking up information that he would never share if he knew who I really was. 3 years into this game of hide and seek, and still no one suspects that the woman bringing coffee to meetings owns 60% of the company. Subscribe to the channel and leave a like to get access to more stories like this. 5 years ago, I sat in my father's lawyer's office days after his funeral. The reading of the will shocked everyone, especially Michael, my brother. I leave 60% of Global Investments and Ventures to my daughter Emily, 15% to my son Michael, and the rest distributed among the minority shareholders. Michael threw his hands in the air. This is absurd. Emily never worked a day in the company. I remember my father's final words to me. Emily, you've always seen people for who they really are. Use that gift. Observe before you lead. A company isn't just numbers in a report, but the people who make it up. Instead of taking my position right away, I devised a plan. Jennifer Carter, my lawyer, thought it was risky. Are you really going to work as a regular employee in your own company? How long do you plan on keeping this up? The time I need to really understand how everything works, not just how it looks on the reports for the board. Robert, my accountant, agreed to keep the arrangement under wraps, managing my shares discreetly. Michael promised to keep the secret, though he doubted my strategy. No one expected me to fall for the brilliant CFO James Wilson during a corporate party where I was introduced simply as Emily Parker. Our wedding happened quickly, and I chose to keep my secret even from him. I wanted to make sure his decisions as CEO were genuine, not influenced by who I really was. After 2 years of analyzing every department, I created the Richardson Project, named in honor of the gardener who used to care for my father's plants. The project aimed to completely restructure the company, cutting inefficient departments and redundant positions, including Amanda's role. I worked quietly, gathering data that showed how we could cut costs and boost productivity. I accidentally left my laptop open in the break room while I got some water. When I came back, I noticed Amanda backing away quickly. That same afternoon, I was called into James's office. Amanda was there, arms crossed, with a triumphant look on her face. Emily, Amanda brought something worrying to my attention. James slid a copy of the Richardson Project across the table. Are you compiling data to restructure the company? This clearly goes beyond your role. I'm just organizing data that might improve our operations, I replied, keeping my cool. Amanda leaned forward. She was planning to shut down my entire department. That seems pretty personal, not professional. James frowned. Emily, I need to know how you accessed these confidential financial details. The conference room was packed when James called me in for a disciplinary meeting. Executives from every department watched as I was accused of improperly accessing privileged information and planning to leak company data. These actions constitute a serious breach of trust, James declared formally, avoiding my gaze. Emily Parker, your contract with Global Investments and Ventures is officially terminated. Amanda gave a sly smile as I gathered my things from my desk under my colleagues' stares. The security guard escorted me out as if I were a criminal. When I got home, I found James packing his clothes. I can't continue being married to someone I don't professionally trust, he said coldly. My lawyer will get in touch regarding the divorce. That night, as I watched the rain through the window of our now empty apartment, I received a message from our receptionist. Emily, I thought you should know. Mr. Wilson and Miss Thompson left together after work. They seemed close. 3 days later, Jennifer brought me more news. James officially canceled the Richardson project. And there's more. We detected strange transactions in the company accounts. Robert is rechecking the numbers, but they seem to be significant discrepancies. For 2 weeks, I watched from afar as James and Amanda methodically dismantled my project. From the hastily rented apartment, I kept track of the reports Robert sent me, detailing suspicious transfers to shell companies. $1,800,000 so far, Robert reported, adjusting his glasses as we examined documents scattered on my desk. They created a fake consultancy to justify the payments, Jennifer added, and they're pressuring board members to approve a restructuring that basically eliminates anyone loyal to your father. Using the remote access that James forgot to disable, I downloaded compromising emails. At night, I drove my 2010 Honda Civic near the company, watching James and Amanda leaving together, laughing as they got into his Porsche. Michael showed up at my temporary apartment unannounced. Enough with this game, Emily. It's time to show who you really are. I looked at the photos of my father on the makeshift wall. Not yet. We need irrefutable evidence. That night, I received an alert. The board had called an emergency meeting to approve the sale of a profitable division at a price way below market value. The buyer? A newly created company with hidden ties to James and Amanda. Now, I said to my reflection in the mirror, it's time. On the morning of the board meeting, I got up before dawn. My reflection in the mirror looked different. Not the timid analyst everyone knew. I opened the secret closet at the back of my temporary apartment where I kept the clothes I'd never worn at the office. I carefully chose a perfectly tailored navy suit, the same shade my father used to wear on important days. How are you feeling? Jennifer asked as she arrived with a folder full of documents. Her dark circles revealed she had worked all night, like I'm about to jump out of a plane without being sure if my parachute will open, I replied while adjusting my pearl earrings, a gift from my father on my 30th birthday. Robert arrived minutes later, carrying 3 folders color-coded. I documented every penny misappropriated. This is enough evidence for criminal charges, not just firings. As we prepared, Michael entered carrying a picture frame. I found this among Dad's things. The photo showed my father holding me in his arms on the day we inaugurated the company's first headquarters. He always knew you'd be ready when the moment came. I spent the morning reviewing every document, memorizing numbers, dates, and names. I rehearsed every word I would say. There wouldn't be a second chance, no room for hesitation. When the clock struck noon, Jennifer placed her hand on my shoulder. They're just waiting on James and the financial report. No one knows you'll be there. Time to change that, I replied, putting away the discreet lipstick I always wore at the office and applying a bold red. Today, I'm no longer just Emily the analyst. I'm Emily Parker, daughter of William Parker. In the private elevator rising to the boardroom floor, I adjusted one last time the subtle brooch with the company's logo that belonged to my father. The door opened, and I walked down the hall where, for 3 years, I had moved almost unnoticed. Now, every step echoed with purpose. The meeting room doors opened as I reached for the doorknob. 12 faces turned at once, confused expressions swiftly changing to shock. James, seated at the head of the table, the seat my father used to occupy, froze with documents in hand. Amanda, sitting next to him, dropped her pen. Miss Parker, this is a private board meeting, stuttered the corporate secretary, awkwardly rising. I'm fully aware of that, Mr. Collins, I replied as I walked to the opposite end of the table. Emily, you are fired. Security is on their way, James declared, recovering from his initial shock. His authoritative tone didn't match the sweat forming on his forehead. I think there's a gross misunderstanding here. I placed my folder on the table and looked each board member in the eye. Allow me to properly introduce myself. I am Emily Parker, daughter of William Parker, founder and the majority shareholder of Global Investments and Ventures, owning 60% of this company. The ensuing silence was deafening. I saw the board's oldest members, those who knew my father, connecting the dots. My eyes so much like his, the way I carried myself now without the disguise of shyness. "This is absurd," Amanda reacted first. "We know all the major shareholders. This is clearly a desperate attempt to—" "Mr. Davidson," I interrupted, addressing the senior board member. "You were there when my father inaugurated our first international branch in Singapore. That night, he recited a poem to celebrate the occasion. Could you tell me what it was?" The elderly man stared at me, mouth agape. "Pablo Neruda. To my daughter, the traveler. Oh my God, you're the little girl in that photo on his desk." James abruptly stood up. "This can't be true. I would have known if my own wife, ex-wife in the process, to be exact," I corrected calmly. "And about knowing, doesn't that raise some interesting questions about how much you really know?" I signaled to Jennifer, who entered the room carrying additional documents. "My attorney will distribute copies of my father's will and share certificates for verification. While you examine these, I'd like to direct your attention to the real reason for this emergency meeting." I activated the projector and displayed the first slide featuring bank transfers. In the last 16 days, roughly $2 million were funneled out of the company through a phantom consultancy called Elite Strategy Partners, a company registered only 3 weeks ago, whose ultimate beneficiaries are— I clicked to the next slide, showing names and documents. James Wilson and Amanda Thompson. James's face turned to stone. Amanda tried to stand, but Robert entered the room and blocked the door. "This includes the transaction you are about to approve today, selling our Asian technology division at 40% below market value to another shell company linked to you both." I handed individual folders to each board member. The documents include emails, bank transfers, and testimonies from employees who were pressured into falsifying reports. James tried to regain his composure. "Board members, this is clearly a conspiracy cooked up by a disgruntled employee who— an employee who has observed every move in this company for the past 3 years," I finished. "An employee who knows every number, every project, every deal since you took over as CEO. An employee who created the Richardson Project not to leak information, but to save this company from decline caused by autocratic and corrupt decisions." I turned to the board. "I worked at the grassroots level of this company to truly understand its operations, not just the glossy quarterly reports you receive. The Richardson Project wasn't a breach of confidentiality. It was my plan to restore the integrity and efficiency that my father built." Mr. Davidson cleared his throat. "If what you say is true, and these documents are certainly convincing, we have a serious case of corporate fraud. Police and federal agents are waiting in the lobby," I confirmed. "But before we get into legal matters, I need to exercise my rights as the majority shareholder." I looked directly at James. "James Wilson and Amanda Thompson, you are officially removed from your positions at this company, effective immediately." Amanda toppled her chair in her attempt to retreat. "You can't do this. We have ironclad contracts." "Contracts that include specific clauses about ethical conduct and loyalty to the company," Jennifer replied, opening another folder. "Clauses you have repeatedly violated." James, realizing there was no way out, tried one last card. "Emily, can we talk in private? There are explanations for all of this, just as there are explanations for you starting a relationship with Amanda while we were still married, or for publicly humiliating someone you thought had no power to respond." I maintained a firm tone without raising my voice. "There's nothing to discuss. Corporate security will escort you out of the building, where the authorities will take over." Once the two were removed from the room, I turned to the stunned board. "Ladies and gentlemen, I propose a vote to confirm me as interim CEO until we reorganize the leadership. We have a lot of work ahead of us." 2 hours after the board meeting, I watched from the main office window as James and Amanda were escorted to police patrol cars. Employees gathered by the windows, witnessing the surreal scene. Michael entered the office carrying coffee. "How does it feel to be in the old man's chair now?" he asked. nodding towards the imposing desk that now belonged to me. Like I've only just completed half the journey, I replied, picking up a box with my personal belongings left at the reception after my firing. That same afternoon, I called a company-wide meeting. The packed auditorium buzzed with rumors and speculations. I stepped onto the stage, still wearing the Navy suit, but now with the updated badge. Emily Parker, CEO. Good morning, everyone. Many of you know me as Emily, the analyst from the 22nd floor. Others might not know me at all. Today I want to truly introduce myself and explain some recent events. For 40 minutes I recounted my story, the unexpected inheritance, the decision to work undercover, the discovery of the fraud. I explained the Richardson Project in detail, highlighting that its goal was never to cut indiscriminately, but to realign the company with its original values and vision. I promise you, transparency and integrity, the same qualities I expect from every person in this room. I'm not here to promote mass firings, but to build a better version of global investments. Those who share this vision will have their place on this journey. In the following days, I set up in the president's office, but I made it a point to keep a desk on the open space of the 22nd floor. It's important I continue to see the company from all angles, I explained when Jennifer questioned the decision. The implementation of the Richardson Project began immediately. Unlike James and Amanda's plan, we didn't cut entire departments. Instead, we reorganized teams based on efficiency and complementary skills. We created a direct channel for employees to propose improvements, ensuring that voices at all levels were heard. Robert coordinated comprehensive audits in every division, recovering a large portion of the misappropriated funds. Legal actions were taken not just against James and Amanda, but also against the shell companies and external accomplices. A week after officially taking over, I personally visited the departments Amanda had threatened to eliminate. You are not just numbers on spreadsheets, I told the nervous employees. You are the heart of this company. News that the undercover analyst was really the heiress and new CEO quickly spread beyond the corporate walls. Reporters tried to book interviews, curious about the unusual story. I turned down most requests, granting only one interview to clear up rumors and set the company's new direction. The real story isn't about me, I declared to the journalist. It's about how companies can lose their way when power becomes more important than purpose, and how it's always possible to come back to the core values. When the first phase of restructuring was completed, I reconvened the board, this time not in the formal meeting room, but in the collaborative space we had created in the former executive floor. Ladies and gentlemen, the preliminary results indicate a 28% increase in operational efficiency, and this is just the beginning. 6 months later, the morning started like every other day since the transformation. I arrived at 7, parking my trusty Honda Civic in a spot that once was reserved for the executives' luxury cars. I eliminated exclusive parking spots as part of the new corporate culture. The main lobby had been revamped, replacing cold opulence with a warmer ambiance. The new sign at the entrance now read, Global Innovations and Ventures, Building the Future with Integrity, a subtle name change that symbolized our renewal. On the 25th floor, now an open space where executives worked side by side with their teams, I met Margaret, Amanda's former assistant, now the talent development manager. The employee satisfaction survey results are in, she announced, handing me a tablet. Employee satisfaction has increased by 82% compared to last year. And what about the productivity metrics? I asked as we walked through the collaborative space. They smashed all projections. Overall efficiency is up 70% in the last 4 months. The reverse mentoring program we implemented is uncovering amazing talents at the most basic levels. The program Margaret mentioned was one of my proudest achievements. Junior staff mentoring senior executives on new technologies and trends, breaking down rigid hierarchies, and creating channels for two-way communication. At noon, I grabbed my lunchbox and sat in the communal cafeteria, a tradition I maintained even after my identity was revealed. Several employees gathered at my table, discussing ideas without the intimidation that used to fill these meetings. "How are the negotiations with the Asian investors?" asked Carlos, a recently promoted analyst. "Promising. We're undoing the damage caused by James's fraudulent contracts. The technology division he tried to sell at a bargain is now a leader in innovation." After lunch, I led a video conference with our international branches. Our new decentralized structure allowed local decision makers to quickly address regional needs. "Perth exceeded its targets by 15%, announced the Australian director, and we attribute that directly to the new culture of responsible autonomy. In the afternoon, I visited our newly created Social Innovation Center, where teams were working on projects aligned with sustainable development. "This is the future of the company," I explained to investors on the tour. "Not just increasing shareholder value, but creating a positive impact in the communities where we operate." The last meeting of the day was with Jennifer and the legal team. The trial for James and Amanda was scheduled for next month. "They're trying to negotiate plea agreements to reduce sentences," Jennifer noted. "Keep our position firm. We're not after revenge, but justice and full recovery of the misappropriated funds." At the end of the day, I passed by Amanda's old office, now transformed into a de-stress space for employees. Young analysts who used to tremble at the sight of her now laughed as they collaborated on projects. Michael showed up for our monthly dinner. "I just saw the quarterly numbers," he commented as we headed to a modest restaurant we'd frequented since we were kids. "Would you be impressed, Dad?" "He'd be more impressed with the people than the numbers," I replied. "The way everyone came together to rebuild, especially knowing that his daughter spent 3 years working undercover to understand the company from the inside. That old fox knew exactly what he was doing when he left everything to you." The next morning, I received a report on the expanded benefits programs: extended parental leave, flexible hours, incentives for continued education. All initiatives that had met resistance from the old administration, but now showing returns in talent retention and increased productivity. Who would have thought that treating people like human beings would lead to better financial results? I remarked to Robert during our quarterly review. Who would have thought that the timid analyst from the 22nd floor would revolutionize a multinational corporation? He replied with a smile. Subscribe to the channel and leave a like to get access to more stories like this. A full year had passed since I revealed my identity in that boardroom. The morning sun lit up my office as I examined a photo album on my desk. Images of global innovations before and after told a story of profound transformation. The intercom rang. "Miss Parker, the board is assembled for the ceremony." "I'll be there in a moment," I replied, closing the album. I grabbed my simple handbag, the one I used when I worked as an analyst, and walked down the hall. Employees smiled and waved, not with the fearful respect they showed James, but with genuine regard. In the main lobby, a crowd gathered for the inauguration of the William Parker Center for Development and Innovation, a space dedicated to incubating ideas from employees at all levels. Next to the entrance, a plaque displayed my father's favorite motto: "To lead is to serve. To innovate is to listen." We are gathered here today, not just to celebrate a new physical space, I began my speech, but to honor the values that uphold our company. For decades, my father built a legacy based not just on financial success, but on integrity, respect, and long-term vision. I looked at the faces in the crowd, veterans who knew my father, newcomers inspired by our renewed culture, even some who initially doubted my ability to lead, all now part of the same revitalized community. When I took on this role, many questioned my unconventional methods. Why would an heiress work undercover for 3 years? The answer is simple: because real value isn't measured by titles or positions, but by the positive impact we create. We can't lead what we don't truly understand. Jennifer smiled from the front row. Next to her, Robert adjusted his glasses, visibly moved. Michael, now heading our philanthropic foundation, nodded discreetly. "The case against the former executives was wrapped up yesterday," I continued. "Justice was served, resources were recovered. But our true victory isn't in the past we corrected. It's in the future we're building together." After the ceremony, I walked through the parking lot toward my 2010 Honda Civic. passing by spots where former executives once parked their fancy cars. A reporter caught up with me. "Miss Parker, with all the company's success and your personal fortune, why do you stick with this old car? Is it some sort of image strategy?" I smiled as I unlocked the door. "This car reminds me every day that appearances can be deceiving, or that we judge too superficially based on external symbols of status. When I started as an analyst, colleagues underestimated me because of my modest car, simple clothes, and lack of arrogance. Ironically, it was exactly those qualities that allowed me to see the truth and eventually transform the company." Back in the empty office after everyone had left, I hung a framed photo on the wall. It was me at 5 years old in my father's arms, both smiling in the old boardroom. Beside it, I hung my very first analyst badge. That night, as I closed the doors of the new Innovation Center, I reflected on how expectations and appearances can blind us. How genuine respect can't be demanded by position. It must be earned through actions. How true wealth isn't in bank accounts or luxury cars, but in the integrity with which we live. My cell phone buzzed with a system alert. Operational efficiency had hit 87%, a historic record. I smiled and put the phone away. The numbers mattered, but they weren't everything. What really mattered was restoring my father's vision, a company where people are valued above profits, where innovation comes from collaboration rather than toxic competition. As I left the building, I noticed a young analyst still working late. I remembered myself just over a year ago. I stopped at her desk. "It doesn't matter how urgent the work seems. You must never forget that your life outside these walls is valuable," I said gently. She smiled, surprised that the CEO had stopped to chat. "Thank you, Miss Parker. I'm just finishing an idea for the innovation program. Take the time you need then. Ideas deserve the space to grow." I smiled, recalling how my own journey began with a simple idea: to see the truth behind appearances. While driving home through the city center, where corporate buildings towered like monuments to power and status, I felt a deep sense of peace. Global Innovations was finally becoming what my father always dreamed of, not just a profit-driven company, but a community with purpose. True power was never in the title you held, but in the ability to positively influence people's lives. That was the final lesson I learned on my journey from analyst to CEO. That authentic leadership isn't about titles or authority, but about character, vision, and the courage to stay true to your values, even when no one is watching. Subscribe to the channel and leave a like to get access to more stories like this.